Hi everyone, how's it going? Basically, what you're looking at here, or what you're about to listen to, is basically a mental health assessment from a self referral that I did because I wanted a cognitive behavioral therapist. Um, it's unlikely that they're going to give me just a cognitive behavioral therapist at this point, but I did want to use the opportunity to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I didn't hold back. I told them everything. I did the same thing with these people as I did with adult social care. And the perps have been relying on me to respond to threats that they could do this to me, they could do that to me, they could do the other to me. What they're failing to understand is I'm used to a lot of their tactics by now, and I know how they operate. And I know, yes, that they can always get worse, which is exactly why I can't keep quiet about this. I'm not living a double life for anybody. So, without further ado, I'm going to play you the recording so that you guys know exactly what I said. All right? Now, the usual thing with TIs is that they're supposed to keep their answers short so that they don't end up looking crazy in the eyes of people who are making these assessments, because what mental health staff usually like to do is they usually like to take everything that you've said and try to make you sound as crazy and erratic as possible. So, the reason why I'm posting this recording and the reason why I've posted other recordings in the past is so that you can know exactly what I said. So if you get any paperwork that makes it sound like I'm crazy, or makes it sound like I'm stupid, or makes it sound like my capacity for understanding and comprehension is reduced, you guys will know that's bullshit. Okay? Now, this meeting took place for about like over an hour. So it it might be a two-parter because Instagram only allows an hour for each live. So without further ado, let's proceed with the recording.
So, right now, I have to talk about this honestly, because the thing is that what happened was that what's been happening to me is that I've experienced electronic torture, and because I've experienced electronic torture, I've had problems with my mobility. I've had problems with not cognitive thought, but I've had problems with, such things as memory and things like that. I've had problems with my hips. My hips are my biggest issue, because depending on when and how I'm being tortured, when my hips are affected, I literally can't walk. It got to a point where it was so bad, I had to be hospitalized overnight because I was in literal agony. And then even when I left the hospital, I couldn't walk except for on crutches. That was a few weeks ago. So basically, I'm recovering from the aftermath of particularly bad torture. And then on top of that, I get burned in my throat when I sing. I get, I've got dry scalp because of all the non-ionized radiation that's affected my skin. I've also got significant. Well, I think I've got significant brain damage. We actually need a um, brain scan to look at it. But I do have hearing issues as well. My throat's burned out. It's not damaged, it's literally burned from everything that's happened to it. And on top of that, as you know, I've got the back injuries. But the back injuries are kind of separate because it's like a herniated disc, which is already it's already made like quite a bit of improvement already. So the reason why I referred myself for cognitive behavioral therapy is because I know the torture is going to continue, and I know that there's going to be a cover-up. I also know that this torture is going to be used to entrap me, to have me moved out of, to have me moved from place to place, because that's actually how it works. It's been going on for a long time. So, having all of this in mind, what I want to do is have the tools to kind of manage these things emotionally, so that when I do find myself out of a home because of the latest campaign, or if I find myself unable to walk again because of the torture, or I'm being abused and neglected by staff that are meant to take care of me, when I'm in that situation, that I have the emotional tools to be able to deal with it and think practically and logically, rather than being triggered all over again because people are, because I'm being tortured on top of the neglect that I'm having to go through. So that's why I actually wanted to refer myself to cognitive behavioral therapy. In case you're thinking that this is just a delusion or this is just a paranoid schizophrenic symptom, with regards to everything that I'm talking about right now, this is research that I've been doing on this subject matter for 6 years, and it's been backed up with decades of research and testimonies. I've also spoken to, the first thing I did when I got to Brighton was also talk to MPs about this situation, like Lloyd Russell Moyle. I spoke to the Brighton MP about this situation. There have been meetings in the UN with regards to electronic torture, the same electronic torture that I'm talking about now. The thing is that because emotionally I'm becoming more resilient to everything that's going on, the physical torture is going to get worse. And it's going to happen at inconvenient times when I'm trying to live my life. So what I need is the emotional tools to be able to cope with that. Ordinarily, I'd just say to you, look, I need medication for this. But the medication is actually just going to make it worse.
I'm getting torture.
Give me opposite symptoms,
Hold on.
which will cause other hormonal problems later on.
Hold on.
So I need the tools to be able to deal with situations.
I'm getting torture in my hips, so I'm going to be moving around. I'm going to be moving around throughout the video. The hip torture is meant to make me stop the video, but it's not going to happen, so.
Where out of nowhere I'm suddenly not going to be able to walk, or not going to be able to sing, or not going to be able to do what I normally want to do, because I'm being caused pain by this electronic torture that's going on. If you look online after we finish this conversation, look up Havana syndrome and you'll know what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm going through right now. So that's why Havana syndrome, if you look it up online, Havana syndrome, look it up online. It's normally associated with US intelligence officers, but basically that's a red herring. It's been happening to ordinary people for decades now, because they needed to test it on ordinary people before they could take that, before, whoever's doing it, I say whoever's doing it, I know exactly who's doing it, but the people who are actually doing this to ordinary people, they've been doing it to ordinary people for a long time before they moved on to the elites. So if you look up Havana syndrome online as soon as you end this conversation, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But again, it's not just your brain that's affected, it's also your bones. There are certain technology that is used that affects the composition of your bones, which is what makes it so painful, which is why you can end up immobilized. There are multiple different types of equipment that are used on people like me, and mentally vulnerable people are actually the easiest people to do this to, because if we're already diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia or psychosis or all these types of different things, then it's going to be easier to do it to us than it is to do it to other types of people, because nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. It's an easy thing to do to somebody like me. But my thing is this: if I'm going to be moved from place to place because of these campaigns, if I'm going to be tortured repeatedly, then I at least deserve to have the emotional tools to be able to deal with things like this when they happen, because it's going to happen. I'm going to come across people who are going to abuse me, going to neglect me, going to leave me in a situation where I'm supposed to, where I'm vulnerable, where I can barely walk, or, if I'm having really bad headaches or something like that, I'm going to be neglected and I'm going to be abused. So I need the tools emotionally to be able to deal with it. That's why, for me, cognitive behavioral therapy is a big thing. Because when you end up in a situation where you're physically incapacitated and and you're in pain, or you're surrounded by people who are hell-bent on abusing you and triggering you, you need the tools to be able to deal with that.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do in a moment, because I would like to explore this some more and think about how this is all affecting you at the moment. It sounds like this is having a huge impact on your life. I just wanted to check, because you mentioned a little bit before medication. Are you taking any medication at the moment?
No, I actually stopped taking them. I've always been reluctant to take them, but
What were you taking?
before I got here, I was taking aripiprazole, which is the mildest form of antipsychotic. But again, I was treated for psychosis for a problem that was not a delusion. I was treated for psychosis for electronic torture that was basically all over my skin and all over my body. So I was being treated. I'm going to be very, very blunt with you. I was treated for psychosis for things that were not down to psychosis. So imagine you're going into a police station and you have all this evidence with you and you can prove that all of these things are being done to you, but instead of the police actually investigating and solving the crime, they give you medication for it. That's what that situation was like.
Is that what happened to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when did that happen?
That happened a few years ago. I have to admit, when I was, that's what I'm saying, because I've been talking to them for ages about it, and they just, medication, put her on meds, and I'm thinking,
put you on medication.
yeah.
And whereabouts was that? Was that in Brighton or was that somewhere else?
It was in London, yeah.
It was in London.
There was a lot of corruption in London that I ended up exposing, and they just kept trying to engage in this cover-up by using my mental illness as a scapegoat. Because remember, if you're, let me put it this way, right? If you're in the mental health profession and you know you're committing crimes against people, or you know you're facilitating worse crimes than people can possibly imagine against one person, and you have the opportunity to own up, to investigate your own crimes, to find yourself accountable, would you do it? Would you solve your own crimes if you know you could get away with it instead?
And is that something that's happened to you as well? So did you spend some time with mental health professionals that were mistreating you?
I have all kinds of proof of that, yeah. I have all kinds of proof of that. And then when I get here, I'm electronically tortured again, to the point where I can't walk, or to the point where I'm incapacitated. I tried to get my landlord to help me, and it's basically a farce. And then on top of that, when I'm brought to the hospital, even though it was very, very busy, I have to give them this, it was extremely busy. But the way I was actually treated was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And on top of that, I was given like 3 different diagnoses by 3 different doctors. The first one said that I had a ruptured disc. The second one said I had a ruptured disc because I was unfit. The third one said that no, there's no ruptured disc, there's a musculoskeletal problem, which confuses me. So I'm going through all this stuff is happening, and then on top of that, I'm having to deal with my landlord's gaslighting me, and my landlord's trying to paint this picture of me being difficult and me being, you know, so they can, so, you know, that so that I can be moved to another flat. Like, all of this stuff I'm having to contend with at the same time.
So at the moment your landlord is trying to get you to move out?
Well, it happens to vulnerable people all the time, though. Like, what I'm talking about with regards to me is a really extreme version of what poor people go through all the time. Think about it like this, right? If I'm in pain and I'm screaming all over the place, that means the local community think that there's something wrong with me, or think that I'm violent or something like that. If I start screaming in agony, then the local community are going to think there's something wrong with me. So there's a complaint factor, right? And then on top of that, if I'm not well, then what happens to the standard of the home? Things start to go wrong. Things are not clean, and this, that, and the third. If I can't walk, and if I can't take care of myself, if I'm missing the toilet, then it means my environment's dirty, it's not being taken care of properly. And then on top of that, because I'm a vulnerable person, I'm a private tenant, but I'm also a vulnerable person. So because I'm a vulnerable person and I'm not rich, if I ask for repairs to be done, they'll string me along for as long as they can get away with it before they actually start doing it. And like I said, my thing is a more extreme version of what other poorer people go through. That's basically what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a more extreme version of that. Only there are people blatantly committing crimes against me, covering it up by saying that I have paranoid schizophrenia, so that it affects my evidence in court if it ever comes to that. And then on top of that, I've got all the physical stuff to deal with. I don't know where I'm living from one moment to the next. It's a lot of things all piled in there. And then on top of that, I've lost my gran as well. So there's all of that piled in there. It's a lot for me to deal with. So for me, rather than allowing myself to, because the thing is, I'm quite a strong and resilient person. So
I can hear that.
So for me, it's a matter of getting cognitive behavioral therapy to basically manage triggers, because I still get emotionally triggered by certain things. So for me, it's cognitive behavioral therapy to manage the triggers when these situations happen again, so that instead of allowing myself to become emotionally distraught by everything, I can find ways to deal with it. That's why I want the CBT.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned you're renting privately, so do you live on your own at the moment?
I do, but the thing is, I actually do better psychologically when I'm living on my own. And I can't lie to you, ever since I came to Brighton from London, I've been through a lot, yes, but the mental breakdowns that I've had have been significantly less serious than when I was in London. Like, significantly less. So, even
when did you move to Brighton, sorry?
I moved a year ago. It's a year ago now. I moved here on the 7th of July, and it was a long time before I actually got this place.
Is it trucks outside or is it washing machine? Hold on.
But the thing is...
Yeah, there's trucks outside. Sorry about that. Let me just rewind. Should be here. Okay.
Have been significantly less serious than when I was in London. Like, significantly less. So...
When did you move to Brighton, sorry?
I moved a year ago. It's a year ago now. I moved here on the 7th of July, and it was a long time before I actually got this place. But the thing is that I met so many friends here. I've made friends here. I've been, I've been able to be my real self here. And on top of that, because of all the natural environment, I'm in Woodingdean. Woodingdean is gorgeous, okay?
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm surrounded by nature all the time. There is, all of that combined, it's made me a lot calmer, and it's made me a lot more, just a lot more laid back than I was when I was in London. In London, I was a mess, and I lived there all my life. But I've come here, and even though things are, I mean, it's technically harder here. Like, there's a bit more racism here, there's a bit more sexism here, but because of the nature, and because of I've been all over the coast. I've been like Hove, Eastbourne, like I was homeless, but I got to go to all these wonderful places despite the fact that I was homeless and living in hotels. I got to stay in these beautiful environments where I was close to nature all the time, and that's had a really, really positive effect on my mental being. Like, it's had such a positive effect on me. It's like, but I don't care how well I get. I don't care how well I am. I could be completely cured of my mental illnesses and still want to do CBT. And I know it sounds codependent, but for me, CBT is essential for anybody. Like, talking therapies is essential for people, because you're going to have internal dialogue that might not be all the way constructive, and when you're vulnerable, that can be augmented. So that for me is really, really important.
Yeah, like how to manage those things.
Yeah.
Because we experience difficult things through life. Sounds like, obviously some people experience more difficult things than others. But how we can manage that.
Yeah.
And just to go back, because you mentioned that you were homeless and you were living in hotels, and then was that just before you moved into the flat that you're in now?
Yes, it was. Okay,
so when did you move into your flat?
Okay, so alright, so I moved here on the 4th of May, so it wasn't very long. It's a short hold tenancy for 6 months. It's a lovely flat. It's actually really nice. It's actually a perfect size for me. It's a perfect size. It's just a bit of a bother furnishing it because of the financial aspects.
And are you working at the moment?
No, not at the moment. No.
No. Are you able to look for work at the moment with everything that you've got going on?
Well, if I'm gonna be like doubled up in pain because my hips aren't working right, or my back's effed up, or like I'm dizzy, or I remember there was this time where I made an application to look for a job, and I contacted Reed and I told them all about what was going on. I said, look, I'm being tortured or what have you. I'm electronically tortured remotely, but I still want to look for a job and things like that. Next thing I know, I am laid out for 5 hours, dizzy and nauseous. That was deliberate. That was deliberate. And I know, like I said, I know how it sounds, but there's evidence for it. So that was deliberate. So even when I'm trying to look for a job, like even looking for one, if I do anything remotely positive that elevates myself, or that gets myself to the level where I want to be, here comes the bullshit.
And when you say the bullshit, do you mean the electronic torture that you're experiencing?
Yeah, like my hips don't work right, or or I can't walk suddenly, or my back's gone out, or it's always when I'm happy and I'm doing something I like, like today I was singing, what I was doing in the shower, I can only describe it as graphic composition. It was just a cacophony of sounds, right? I wasn't actually singing. But whilst I was doing that, my throat started hurting. Like my throat was being burned whilst I was doing that. I'll give you another story, right? I was staying in a hostel in Hove, right? And just before I left, I was in agony for 3 days because of my gums, because my gums were being fired on. I was in literal agony where I was screaming. I was screaming for my parents. That's how bad the pain was. This wasn't normal toothache. I've had normal toothache. I've had normal backache. I've had normal aches and pains. This wasn't normal. This was malicious. And I was laying there screaming in agony, like, and then as soon as I have to move out of the hostel, suddenly, oh, it's a miracle, it's disappeared. Nah, that was deliberate.
Yeah. So, from what's been happening at the moment, it feels like whenever these pains happen, is it someone else who's causing it? I'm sorry.
The thing that I know this. A lot of people haven't heard about this before, but this is where it gets tricky. Where it gets tricky is me knowing exactly who's doing it. Because the way it works, it's remote. So you've got fusion centers, and what will happen is that they'll perform certain commands where several groups of people will suffer from the same things at the same time. So I'm talking to other people going through this situation, and for example, I noticed during the nighttime my eyes will go blurry. That's deliberate. That's happened before. I noticed that my eyes will go blurry, or my hips will seize up, or my back will seize up, and I know that it's not actually coming from my own body. And then there are other people who are going through the exact same thing at the exact same time. So it's like these fusion centers send it to a cell tower, and then that cell tower sends it to us. It's like Google, except it's torture. That's basically how it works. Yeah. So knowing who's actually doing it is a very tricky thing, because it could literally be anybody doing it, like, and they don't have to be near the target in order to do it. One thing I do know though is that the pain is usually worse in my bedroom than it is in other places in my flat. That's one thing I do know.
Okay.
That's what usually happens.
Okay, just a note here. That shit has actually stopped. Ever since I've been talking about how the torture is worse in my bedroom than it is when I go out, ever since I started talking about how the torture, because I've been very, very clear with adult social services, I've been very clear with everybody about exactly what's going on. Ever since then, the torture has become less obvious now. They still do it, but it's just a lot less obvious. And now, I think whichever amateurs are operating the electronic torture, they're starting to understand now that they can't just fucking fire it on me in my bedroom and think that's gonna work. So now they're basically spreading out the torture. They're kind of dialing it down in terms of the volume and stuff like that, because they don't want me screaming. They don't want the same thing happening again, and they don't want people asking questions. So that shit has actually stopped. The intensity being greater in my bedroom, that stopped, because now they realize I'm not fucking around here. So the torture is still continuing, but they've changed tactics. And one note I actually want to make as well is that it seems to me that if targets are being attacked in certain parts of the body at the same time, I think what that is that they are experimenting with different weapons that operate in different ways. I don't think that weapons would attack multiple people in the same place unless it was a particular weapon that was in charge of, for example, eroding bone density or bruising the muscles. I think that new technologies come out and citizens are basically attacked with it. That's what I think is going on. But let's move on to the recording.
So yeah, it's a very difficult situation, and it's happening to a lot of vulnerable people. And then there are vulnerable people who either don't know it, or because they have other mental illnesses going on as a result of the abuse that they've actually gone through. Their ability to actually communicate what's happened to them is diminished because they're so traumatized, and the way that they communicate is so erratic and so scattered. They can't really fully put into words exactly what's going on, and of course we have to use our research to fill in the gaps of what's going on with us. But make no mistake, it is going on, and there's a huge cover-up surrounding it. And the only reason I'm telling you guys, in spite of what happens to me, is that I know that this is never going to stop. I know that I'm always going to be caused physical pain no matter where I go and no matter what I do. And I know that my ability to progress in life is going to be severely impaired by everything that's going on. I know that I'm going to be kept moving from place to place. I know if I know all of this is going to happen, then for me, there's no point in hiding it from anybody, not even mental health. So there's no point in me living a double life because it's not doing me any good.
No, definitely not. And how long has it been going on for?
Okay, so I've been aware of it since my early 20s, but as far as I know, it could have been happening all my life, for all I know. I had a seizure when I was 3 and then never had another one. I think if I may, I'm going to be really presumptuous when I say this, but I think it might have been closer to a stroke, because even though the muscles in my face were working, I couldn't talk. After the seizure, I couldn't speak. I had to be taught everything all over again, and that's when I was 3 years old. I think that this has been happening all my life, and I think this is intergenerational. But I've only been aware of it since my early 20s.
Okay, yeah. And since your early 20s, is that when you started to notice the physical symptoms, or?
The thing is, I've always had physical symptoms. I just never knew where they were coming from. From the time I was young, it's only when I look back throughout my life that it starts to make sense. But where I actually became aware of the targeting was when somebody else was going through it and somebody else pointed it out. Because these people were engaging in some really weird behavior around this person. There would be people who were deliberately trying to drive her off the road, or people who would mob her or who would insult her out of nowhere. And I'm thinking, this is not normal for a normal person to be going through. And I started observing it myself, and then I started realizing, I started noticing that people were gaslighting me, and it was only when I noticed it happening to someone else that I noticed it was happening to me. But as far as I'm concerned, it could have been going on my entire life.
Yeah.
And I just never knew it.
Yeah. And you mentioned people gaslighting you. Is that some of the mental health support, or just kind of generally things?
No, it's that can either synthesize mental illness or cause mental illness. People gaslighting you, because then it scrambles your ability to perceive what's actually going on and what isn't going on. When people gaslight you all the time, you start to doubt yourself, and that will cause you anxiety, and that will cause you depression. So
and with the, I just wanted to, I guess, make it so make sure I understood. So when you were in London, was the first time you ended up being given antipsychotics the time you went to the police station, and then they put you on medication then?
No. That was just like an example. It was like hyperbole. That wasn't actually a situation that happened. Although I have to admit, when I was gaslit by somebody in a car, I attacked the car with my bag. Right. So the police came over, and they roughed me up. I wasn't actually under arrest, so they're not supposed to do that. But they roughed me up and they said I was resisting. And then they had me in a cell overnight. I was actually allowed to leave the cell because of my vulnerable state. I was actually allowed to leave it for a bit, walk around. And I was, as I was entering an interview room, there was a psychiatrist there with a needle full of brown liquid. I don't know what the brown liquid is, but as soon as I came into the room, he got up and left. So I'm thinking that was actually supposed to be for me, but he didn't go through with it. And then when I was actually in the police cell, the police officer said something along the lines of, because I heard him through the door. He said, "We can't keep her here. There's too many witnesses to what happened last night." Meaning I wasn't actually under arrest and they roughed me up for no reason. So that was a few years ago in London.
Okay, so a few years ago, boy, that was a while back. That police case in particular took place on the 26th of, I think it was either the 25th or the 26th of October 2013. So that police case that I'm describing right now is like a good 8 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago. And I still remember it like it's yesterday. And when I talk about the police coming over, they didn't come over to my house. I was stupid enough to sit outside a police station near Wembley Park Station, right next to Wembley Park Station. Me and my dumbass, I decided to sit outside a police station. And that's when the police brutality and all that type of stuff went down. So I'm not describing it very well here, but she did ask about the police. So basically I brought up the 2013 arrest in order to illustrate exactly what I've been going through and how this whole gang stalking shit has affected me. So yeah, because there were too many witnesses, they let me go. They had to let me go. There were too many witnesses. And they couldn't convict me of anything. They couldn't send me to court. I was let off with a caution, simple caution, for the arrest of a police officer. Not arrest of a police officer, tell a lie. The assault of a police officer that would never have happened in the first place if they didn't have their hands on me. So, let's proceed.
I wasn't given medications, but it was like there was a threat. Where I was actually, where I was actually like given the antipsychotics was, there was a suicide attempt in March a few years ago, twice in one night, and I did actually call mental health for help. Somebody else might have called an ambulance. Somebody else might have called someone.
Once again, we're going way back a ways. This was back when I was still living in Willesden, okay? In Willesden Green, in supported housing. So that was a ways way back. I think that might have been in 2017 or 2018 that incident actually happened. But that was another case that happened a long time ago, but that's still kind of fresh in my mind. So let's proceed.
Because they knew that I was trying to kill myself, and I heard them say to the other person over the phone, yeah, she's alive. So I don't know who that person was talking to, but they were saying, yeah, she's alive over the phone, as I was basically trying to end my own life in a bathtub. So after that happened, the day after, I tried to contact mental health and say, look, I've done this to myself, can you come and help me? There was a time where I was supposed to go to an assessment over at Bronsby Road in London, and I called. I think I either left a message or something, but I did call to try to tell them that I was too unwell and could somebody come to get me. Next thing I know, it's April, so it's like a couple of weeks or so after the incident, I get a letter saying, this is your prescription to aripiprazole. If you don't take it, we're going to hospitalize you. So after I tried to kill myself twice, right, I get a letter in the post saying, if you don't take this, we're going to hospitalize you. I ripped the letter up because, you know when you're suicidal, after you're suicidal, you start to get a surge of energy, right? So I was on that high when I got that letter. I was already exercising. I was already getting over my suicide attempt and getting over everything that happened to me. I was already getting over that. So for me to get that in the post, I was just like, no, I'm not fucking taking this shit. Next thing I know, it's May. It's May, so which makes it almost 2 months after the suicide attempt. That's when the doctors decide to come over and say, we need to take you in.
The reason why this is a problem is because one of my other friends, an ex-friend that I used to have, I'm not going to mention their name. They unfortunately harmed themselves, which was awful. They were in a really, really bad way at the time. And the home assessment team were right there the next day to help them, talk them through it, get them, But with me trying to kill myself twice in one night, I can't even get help when I try to refer myself. And yet as soon as I get better, they want to take me in the hospital. Something ain't clean in the buttermilk.
You need to come with us. So it was 2 months after the suicide attempt, when I'm getting better, that's when they decide to take me in. I have a long...
You went to hospital at that point?
Yeah, when I was better. When I needed people to help me, I couldn't get nobody to help me. Nobody was willing to do the work. And yet as soon as I'm getting better on my own, that's when they decide to show up.
I can hear your frustration with that, because that's an awful lot that you had to deal with on your own.
Could you guys hear frustration there? Because I couldn't hear it. I mean, sure, I was frustrated, but the thing is, if you listen to the sound of my voice, like, if there is any change in my voice at all, it's only like the subtlest change. I actually sounded more angry when I said, here comes the bullshit, than when I'm describing this situation. So already it feels a bit gaslighty. Does it feel a bit gaslighty to you guys? Because there was barely a change in my voice when I was talking about this. But let's proceed.
And how long were you in hospital for?
Not long. I was in there for 2 weeks. I was in there for 2 weeks, and I talked to them about how the electronic torture works and everything and everything else. You're not going to believe this, right? But they literally, literally, me burning sage in my bedroom was used as evidence against me that I was mentally unstable.
Yeah.
So basically, me talking about electronic torture and Havana syndrome, and then on top of that, it's like they tried to take normal stuff on top of that to try to make me look as crazy as possible.
This is where I have to laugh as well, because I'm thinking, if you already have me in there on the basis that I heard voices in my head that time I tried to kill myself, and those voices were disgusting. Like, you brought me in there on the basis that I heard voices in my head in March. I'm thinking, if you'd have taken me in, or if you'd have seen me when you were supposed to, you would have had a way more compelling case. Because you could have said, look, this person's a danger to themselves. They're hearing voices, right? That would have been it. You don't need anything else. All you have to say is, this person's hearing voices, this person's this, that, and the third. If it's really the case that V2K was not being used against me, if it really was the case that I wasn't being electronically tortured, if it really was the case that NLP wasn't being employed against me, if it really was the case that suggestions were not being implanted to me through that same voice, through that same V2K technology, then why the fuck would you need to add the sage? Normal people burn sage. It just doesn't make any sense. You've already got me on the hearing voices tip. Now you have to try to use evidence, actual evidence of what I'm saying, as evidence that I'm crazy. And then on top of that, burning sage. Who the fuck does that? Even at the hearing, back when I was in hospital and I was trying to appeal, even at the hearing, which I lost, by the way, and I was still able to get out, even at the fucking hearing, they said, why the fuck are you bringing sage into this? Balance the energies. Any new age practitioner would have told you that. If you're already hearing voices and there's nothing untoward and I really am sick, why the fuck do you need to throw that in there? Oh, it's a concern, it's a fire hazard. No. If somebody is hearing voices, then they're hearing voices. That's all the fuck you need. The fact that they tried to throw other shit on top of it, it means I wasn't hearing voices. That was voice to skull. That was voice to skull, and that was torture. Because once you hear voices as a sick person, that's all you fucking need. This person hears voices. Get them medicated. That's all you need. You don't need to add other stuff on top of it in order to make your case. But the fact that you needed to add other stuff on top of it, use simplistic language to try and make the person sound crazy. The fact that you needed to do all of this, it meant that I wasn't having a psychotic episode. And it meant that I wasn't having a paranoid schizophrenic episode either. It means that you motherfuckers did something. But let's continue.
This was way back. This was like a few years ago.
Okay, yeah.
This is way back. Way back.
And have you had any, experiences with the mental health team or, them taking you into hospital any time since then? Or was it just
No. It was just that. But, of course, getting me to trust them. I still don't trust mental health. Really, but the thing is that I learned to work within mental health, like through things I enjoyed, like singing and art, and I basically I didn't back down from talking about the electronic torture and everything that was happening to me. I never backed down once, but what I did do was demonstrate to them that even though I knew what was going on, that I wasn't allowing it to interfere with my life, because the crux of a serious situation with, the crux of an assessment when it comes to mental health patients is ultimately down to two things. One, are they going to harm themselves? And two, are they going to harm other people? And because they were satisfied I was going to do neither of those things, I didn't have to back down on what was actually happening to me. I had my research, I had my evidence, I didn't have to back down. I talk to the right people. I always talk to the right people whenever certain things are going on. So, for me, if you talk to the right people and you demonstrate that you have the resilience not to hurt yourself or hurt other people, that's basically what mental health is about. It's not, in the entirety of psychiatry's run in this country, no mental illness has been cured. It's all about function. It's always been about function.
Yeah. And at the moment, how are you feeling emotionally?
I mean, I'm angry because I'd like to be able to just live my life and not, normal aches and pains are one thing. Getting older is one thing, but to have to constantly deal with gaslighting and mobbing and physical torture to the point where I'm laid out on my ass. Like, obviously I'm angry, but more than angry, I just want to be able to just like basically train my mind and train my heart to be like, okay, don't take any of this personally. You've got to find a way to move through it. This world doesn't owe me to be nice to me. The way I see it, this world doesn't owe me to be nice. We live in a world, nature in and of itself, it can be kind and lovely, but it can also be cruel. This world doesn't owe me anything, so I'm trying to understand how to move forward and how to proceed in not a healthy way, but in a way that strengthens me and in a way that allows me to strategize and to find a way through life, like to be able to work consistently on things, to be able to do what I need to do. That's what I need the cognitive behavioral therapy for. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm not looking for a miracle. I'm not looking for, a cure. I'm just looking for the tools to be able to help me to cognitively deal with everything around me.
And I haven't actually asked you, and you haven't mentioned it, but how are you sleeping at the moment?
Great.
Sleeping well?
Mhm.
Yeah. And what does that look like for you? Like good sleep?
I do sleep late, but I have to admit, because you know what it is? I'm more active than, providing I have enough money for the bus, I'm actually more active than I was before, because like I said, I have friends here. I had friends in London, but it wasn't the right conditions. But here I have friends. And
do you see them at the moment?
Yeah, my friends are very, very consistent. At the very least, I'm talking to my family on the phone, even though I'm far away from them. I'm in contact with them pretty much all the time. And then on top of that, I have a partner. I have a partner. He's lovely. He is amazing. He is really attentive and kind, and he makes every effort not only to come and see me. I've got to be honest with you, he spoils the hell out of me. He's great.
That's really good. Good. So there's lots of people who are supportive and kind of supporting.
They're great. Honestly, they are.
At the moment.
They are.
Okay. So I just want to essentially, I've got a couple of questionnaires that
you just give me numbers? I'll know what those numbers
Of
are.
course, yes, I can give you numbers, yes.
Yeah.
So 0 is not at all, 1 several days, 2 more than half the days, or 3 nearly every day. Is numbers easier?
Okay. Numbers is
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Cool. So, feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge?
1.
1. Not being able to stop or control worrying?
1.
Worrying too much about different things?
1.
Trouble relaxing?
1.
Yeah. Being so restless that it's hard to sit still?
Oh, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Becoming easily annoyed or irritable?
1.
And then the last one, feeling afraid as if something awful might happen?
Not gonna lie, 1.
1.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's several days for all of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is, the next questionnaire is scored in exactly the same way. This one's just looking at symptoms of low mood.
Yeah.
So it's over the last 2 weeks. Again, how often have you been bothered by any of these problems? The first one is little interest or pleasure in doing things.
2, because of everything that happened with the pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Feeling down, depressed or hopeless.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trouble falling or staying asleep or sleeping too much.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling tired or having little energy.
Oh God, 3. Yeah.
3. Yeah. Poor appetite or overeating.
1.
1. Feeling bad about yourself or that you're a failure or you've let yourself or your family down.
0.
0. Trouble concentrating on things such as reading or watching TV.
1.
Moving or speaking so slowly that other people could have noticed, or the opposite, being so fidgety or restless that you've been moving around a lot more than usual.
I think 1. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. And then the last one on this, thoughts that you would be better off dead or have hurt yourself in some way.
0.
0. Okay. Thank you. The next questionnaire is just looking at if there's any particular situations or circumstances that you're avoiding at the moment. This one's scored from 0 to 8. So 0 is you would not avoid it at all,
Okay.
and 8 that you could always avoid it.
Ah.
So the first one is social situations due to a fear of being embarrassed or making a fool of myself.
2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay. Certain situations because of a fear of having a panic attack or other distressing symptoms,
1.
such as 1. Okay.
Yeah.
And certain situations because of a fear of a particular object or activity. So that could be things such as animals, heights, being in confined spaces.
Oh. Yeah, confined spaces and heights bother me.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, small animals. I'm actually getting better with that, so I give myself like 5.
A 5, yeah. So there are some things there that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last questionnaire is just looking at how much these difficulties you're experiencing at the moment are impacting on different areas of your life.
Yeah.
So again, scored from 0 to 8, 0 being
Jesus.
that there's no impact, and 8 very severe impact.
I don't know how to answer this, because the thing is that
Yeah.
the thing is the impact is kind of, the impact it's having on me is it's more physical than mental. So it's like I have to kind of ascertain how to answer that, because even when I'm laid out on my back, even when I couldn't walk, I was still doing readings, I was still doing videos, I was still talking to people, I was still singing. Like a lot of the things that I like to do and I enjoyed doing, I was still doing. I just couldn't walk, which affected my ability to do things like go to the toilet and things like that. So I don't know how to answer that. Should I answer that in an emotional capacity?
I think I would recommend you answer that as like an overall, so take everything into account at the moment. Does that sound okay to you? That it's just kind of taking out all these things that are impacting you at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay, maybe
The first one is work. So at the moment, you're unable to work because of how you're feeling. So would you put that quite high?
it's because of it's impacted my life, because not because of how I feel, but because the unpredictability of when next I'm going to be tortured or going to go through this pain. It's like I don't know what somebody else is gonna do, so I can't just. It's difficult to say. It's very difficult to answer, because it's like I emotionally, it doesn't stop me from being interested in the same things. And again, I've been able to talk to my friends. I've been able to talk to my family. My boyfriend came over here, basically massaged my back, and it's like it hasn't impaired my social life at all. Like, people have been checking in on me and seeing how I'm doing, and so that part of my life with regards to social life and feeling like I'm loved and cared for right now, that part hasn't been impaired at all. It's just the physical stuff, like being able to work as long as I want to and being able to be as consistent as I'd like. That's the part that's affected.
So it's like the sort of being able to work, and also I think you mentioned as well, like keeping things around the house because of like the physical pain. Those things are very much affected. But your social life, like hobbies, things you enjoy, and your relationships with people aren't affected at the moment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a really good summary of it. That's really helpful. Thank you. That's really helped me understand. Okay, so the next thing I just need to check in with is your safety. So these are questions, that we ask at every assessment. And, there might be some questions here that don't apply to you, and that's fine, but it is important, as I'm sure you can imagine, that we ask them to everyone anyway. So just to check, do you have children at all, or any other dependents?
No, not at the moment.
No. And you mentioned that when we were doing those questionnaires, that you haven't been having any thoughts that you would be better off dead or of hurting yourself in some way. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. I haven't been. Not one.
No,
not once.
Yeah. And the previous suicide attempt, well, that was a few years ago, did you say?
No, actually my most recent one was...
Apologise.
No, don't apologise, it's fine. My most recent one was actually during the winter when I was in the hostel. I went out to the sea. I didn't touch the sea, but I was actually gonna go in there. But I actually stopped myself from going in there. I just broke down crying instead. And I was so angry with myself. I was so angry with myself coming back from that. I said, I will die if it... It was so bad. I laugh about it now, but it was so bad. It was like I was so angry that I didn't do it, and that I chickened out once again.
Yeah.
I was so pissed off of myself, but that was a few months ago. I'm struggling to think what month it was, because it was very cold, I know that, but then winter in Hove is cold as fuck in general, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the weather's been very up and down, hasn't it, this year?
Yeah, so it's difficult for me to say exactly what month. The police did come out and talk to me, so maybe it's on a police record. I don't know, but I didn't give them my name.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just what month it happened. But yeah, that was a few months ago. But right now, I don't feel like that, because I feel like.
Okay, I think that might have been in November. I'm not entirely sure. And yeah, I know what you guys are going to say. Oh, mental health are going to be all over that. Listen, man. There is absolutely no point in lying to these people, because it doesn't matter what you do. You can lie or you can tell the truth. They're going to find ways around it. So best just to be honest and just say, put your heart on your sleeve. Especially, you know, yeah, just do, no, just be honest, man. There's no point. As long as you can explain yourself well and you have an understanding of what your feelings do from time to time, as long as you have an understanding of that, there shouldn't be any reason why you can't be honest. But of course, it takes a lot of balls, it takes a lot of research, and it takes some level of articulacy. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I ain't got the time to lie. I'm being honest.
I feel like there's no point in doing it. If I'm honest with you, I feel like there's no point in harming myself, or because like I'm sorry, I'm gonna be really candid with you if I can.
Yeah, of course you can.
There are people who have been in my situation that have died, and even in death, their deaths went uninvestigated. There is a story of one TI who I believe was buried in a research facility in an unmarked grave. So I'm thinking to myself, even if I die, even if I end my life prematurely, I still wouldn't get any relief. I still wouldn't get release. I still wouldn't.
The person who actually told me about the research facility thing, I welcome that person to correct me on any details I might have gotten wrong, because it was them who actually told me about the research facility thing, and it was them who actually told me that the TI who died, they had a mobile phone with all kinds of evidence on it as to what was going on, as to what was being done, and the police didn't even bother to pick it up. So if the person listening is hearing this, if you're hearing this, if I've gotten anything wrong, then please tell me, because I'm the kind of person, I need to listen to something 2 or 3 times before it sinks in. So if I've gotten anything wrong, then please tell me and please correct, because I want to do justice to this person's memory. This is not just an opportunity for me to fucking, talk smack to fucking. This is serious. There are TIs who have been murdered, and I have been so erroneous in the things that I've done. I'm an emotional person, but it's like I always get the details wrong, and it always ends up undoing everything that not only I'm trying to do, but that the TIs who died or the TIs who have been severely injured are trying to do. And that's not what I want to do in any circumstances. So if I've got it wrong, please correct. But as far as I know, this is true, because I've heard it from somebody who I've never heard a lie from their mouth yet. So if I'm wrong, please correct.
Find peace. So
Yeah.
what is actually point of taking my own life, because even in death, there's still corruption. Your body is, even in death, you don't get peace. So what's the point of ending your life, and what is the point of harming yourself? Because there's just no point to any of it. You might as well just live and let nature take its course, and try to be as happy as you can whenever you can. You might as well just do that and let that be the end of it, because there's no point in you taking your own life. There's just no point in it.
And you mentioned, you've mentioned a few different people in your life. Are there things that stop you from acting on those thoughts? Is it those thoughts that you're just talking about now, thinking,
I think about the people in my situation who have died prematurely, or who have killed themselves and have faced no justice for the things that have happened to them. And I'm thinking, I know it sounds a bit sanctimonious to say that, but I feel like I'd be letting them down if I did that to myself.
So that's completely understandable.
And then on top of that, there's people that I love as well, and my family life is improving. Like, my family are finally starting to show me that they care about me, and vice versa. If I do something now, what happens to them? Like, I'm not going to leave them broken-hearted, like, for no reason.
No, that makes complete sense. And are there people you feel able to speak to at the moment? If you were to have those thoughts again, or if you felt
No, I don't have an issue with that. Like, if I know that if it happens again, then I know who to talk to. So
who would you talk to?
There's so many people in my life that I can talk to if I'm feeling that way. Do you know what I mean?
So is that like your friends, your boyfriend?
So many people.
Your family?
If I feel really, really low, like they're on the other end of the phone, and I know they're gonna listen, and I know they're gonna be supportive. So
No, that's completely understandable. And just to check in, have you had any sort of thoughts about self-harm?
No, I shouldn't laugh, but no, I haven't. And I know it seems like, because the thing is, I've had thoughts like that in the past, like a few years back. But it's like, it just seems ridiculous to me now, especially given what pain actually feels like. Fuck, absolutely not. I'm not gonna put myself through that. No way.
No, that's understandable as well. And when you said that you'd had thoughts like that in the past, did you ever act on those thoughts at all? Like,
well, when I was 20 years old, but I'm like, what, 35 now? I'm 36 this year. So, no, nothing like that.
Okay. Thank you. And just to check, how safe are you feeling at the moment? I know we've talked a lot about these people who,
this torture thing. I know it's a lot to wrap your head around, because it's like, it just sounds like, what the hell? Like, this is completely out of left field. It's like, I know how it sounds, but it's happening all the time. I don't necessarily feel safe, but I know that I'm strong enough to deal with it. So I'd say, in terms of feeling safe, like, I'm probably at about a 5 or something, because I know that whatever happens to me, I'll probably be strong enough to deal with it. So I don't feel safe, but I don't feel like I couldn't handle it.
And a slightly different question. Now, have you ever had any thoughts about harming anybody else?
No, not recently. No.
Okay. And do you feel moment? Do you have any concerns
Actually,
self-care?
yes. Because my back is improving and the torture is, of course, dying down because I don't want anybody being suspicious, whoever's doing it. Because of that, I've actually recovered quite quickly, and I went from not being able to do like the simplest things, like being able to go toilet and wash myself. Now I can do those things without thinking about it.
Yeah.
There are things where I've recovered really, really quickly. It's a bit jarring, if I'm honest.
And how long ago? How quickly have you recovered? How long has that taken?
Well, put it this way, right? I had that really, really painful sensation.
Sorry, there was just some talking outside. I had to rewind it again. Hold up. There we go.
And how long ago? How quickly have you recovered? How long has that taken?
Well, put it this way, right? I had that really, really painful sensation. It was on a Monday that I had that pull down sensation. I went into hospital on a Wednesday. That was a few weeks ago. All of this is from a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's like the week that I went into hospital and came out hardly able to walk at all. On the Sunday next, I was taking the bins out. I was struggling, but I was taking the bins out. The day after that, I was struggling to walk across the road to the pharmacy, but I was able to do it. Slowly but surely, it was like before I knew it, I was walking around, I was doing stuff like as normal. So I think it took about 2 weeks for me to heal, like at least a bit of the way, and it took me like 4 weeks to recover completely, which is not long. It's not long. It's like I said before, like that wasn't a natural pain, because natural pains, they take longer to get over.
Recover. Interesting. Yeah. So it was a very quick.
It was very, very quick, yeah, because normal pain, it takes ages to get over. Don't get me wrong, if you're tortured enough times, it can permanently affect your body. I'm not saying it can't, but the way it happens and then the way it just goes away again, it's like you're left with a few days of that pain and then it goes. So it's almost like anybody from the outside looking in would say you're faking this shit, because it's like, son, you were unable to walk, unable to go to the toilet, and then a few days later you're able to take the bins out. Even if you are struggling, that's a hell of a quick recovery.
Yeah, and sorry, just to go back to, because I just wanted to check,
sorry.
You would be able to,
I had to click my elbow.
You can reach out to,
Sorry about that, I had to click my elbow. And by the way, they've been torturing my elbow as well. Like I said, the perps have been making stupid threats about, oh, we can put you in this part of your body. We can do this to you. I'm like, and? I think what annoys me more than anything is the fact that they're making stupid threats and they think it's going to work anymore. It's very, very evident from the news stories that have been in place recently that gang stalking is expanding. It's basically refined its operations and it's expanding. They're not stopping. So what annoys me more than anything is when they act like they're powerful and when they act like, we'll stop this if you keep your mouth shut. You haven't stopped it. Like, you didn't even stop it when I didn't know what was going on. That's why these perps annoy me. Like, they think they're so important and they're not. They just say this. Say this with no names. And that's all I'll ever be.
Even if you are struggling, that's a hell of a quick recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, and sorry, just to go back to, because I just wanted to check, we talked that you would be able to, the people who you can reach out to, if you're struggling with like these physical symptoms again. I'm just wondering, would you use, like mental health crisis numbers at all? Is that?
I've used Samaritans before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've used Samaritans before.
Yeah. Is that something that you would be able to do if you were to experience those types of thoughts again?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
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 Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to check in as well, something that I meant to ask before. Are you drinking alcohol at all at the moment?
Nah.
No.
No.
And because we spoke about the medication, so not taking any medication. Is there any other like substance use, so either recreational drugs or over the
Oh,
counter
no.
medication?
Nothing recreational. I used... oh, sorry.
Okay.
I use CBD oil, like, occasionally. I try not to use it too much because it slows me down.
Yeah.
But I do, like, use that occasionally, like, just to keep myself level. But, like, I don't like to use it too often because if it's especially potent, it really slows you down.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah.
And just to check, are you happy for us to email you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and are you happy for us to share that information with your GP?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
great, thank you. Okay, nearly finished with everything. We've nearly gone through it all. But I think you've sort of spoken to me about this already, and I've kind of picked up a couple of things. But for treatment, what goals do you have? Are there particular things that you want to get out of treatment?
I just want to be able to, like, continue to deal with the triggers better. That's all I really want. When people start gaslighting me, or when I'm being mobbed, or when I'm going through the physical pain, and I find myself being emotionally triggered, or feeling humiliated, or feeling angry, I want to find a way to channel that into something positive. Do you understand what I mean? Those are the tools that I want. That's how I want to deal with it.
Yeah. So those triggers were kind of being gaslit, like feeling humiliated.
Yeah.
Were there other triggers in particular?
And going through physical pain, bad physical pain, that's another trigger.
Yeah.
But I think anybody would be triggered by that.
Definitely. Okay, thank you. And if you were to have therapy, like CBT, within our service or elsewhere, are there things that you can think of that would get in the way of you being able to engage in therapy?
Oh no, absolutely not. I love therapy.
No.
I'm sorry, but like, I'm one of those people. I get a lot out of talking therapy.
I love hearing that. No, it's a great thing to hear.
I do. I'm gonna be honest with you. I really do love therapy. I find that I get so much out of it. Like, it's just. No, I do love it. I do love it.
And what therapy have you had before?
I've had CBT before. The last therapist I had was amazing. He was great. Because he was similar to my age, it was easy for me to talk to him. Even though I should have said this earlier, but I'm Afro-Caribbean. I was born here, but I'm Afro-Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
He was a Caucasian therapist, but because me and him were similar in age, I felt it really easy to talk to him. And because he was very open to things, like, he was easy to talk to. I loved it. I really did. even when I was talking about things that were difficult for me to talk about, I felt that, you know, because you know when you get that part of therapy where you feel like you've been scrubbed raw internally.
Yeah.
Even when I feel like that, when I felt like that, I really felt like I got so much out of it. And I feel that way when I do therapy anyway. But with him, he was really good at what he was doing. So yeah, I felt that actually changed me for the better. I think that was part of what changed me for the better ultimately, because the way he did his therapy was just so well done.
Yeah.
It was so well done, yeah.
And was that in London?
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah. And how did you get that therapy?
I was referred to early intervention psychosis first, and then I said to them, look, I want like a therapist or whatever. So they were the ones who took care of that for me.
Yeah. Okay. And how long ago was that?
That was a long while ago, actually. Everything that I'm talking about, almost everything that I'm talking about, happened a while ago.
Yeah. And when you say a while ago, is that like a number of?
Yeah, a number of years ago. Yeah.
Or
no, not in my 20s. Like a couple of years back. So.
Couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that, so you've had CBT before with that therapist who does sound really good. And have you had any other therapy before as well?
No. You know, actually, just between you and me, until I get a therapist, what I have been doing is doing my own therapy sessions. So what I'll do is, if I'm feeling something at a time or I remember a dream or something, what I'll do is I'll record it. I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
On record, or get it on record, so that I can remember what I've learned, and that actually helps me process things mentally in everyday life. So I tend to do that, like, until I get a therapist. That's what I'm doing right now, and that's actually helping me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a diary, but it's like an
diary.
It's an audio diary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned dreams there. What sort of dreams are they?
Interesting ones.
Yeah. Just all sorts of dreams that you've been having.
I had a dream about Tom Hiddleston once, but he was he was silent though. He was like
Yeah.
like, he didn't say anything, and he seemed a bit more downbeat. But I don't know. I get all kinds of weird dreams, man. But it's like, do you know what I realized? The only time when I realize what the dream means is when it actually plays out in my real life. That's the only time when it actually clicks. Oh, that's what the dream was about. Yeah.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. And finally, I suppose I just wanted to check. Is there anything from your past that you feel might be relevant to how you're feeling at the moment?
I'm gonna think on that one because that's a good question. Harassment from a few years ago when I lived in sheltered accommodation still affects me really badly. I wanna play the piano again, but I feel too traumatized to do it because of everything that happened surrounding it. I was harassed for a while just because of that one thing. It was because of that one thing. They really, really seem to be obsessed with it, and I think
Playing the piano.
The thing is, I had a lot of stalkers when I was in London, like more than one. So it was like.
Okay, so real talk. I've got stalkers here, okay, I've got a lot of stalkers here in Brighton. Nothing's changed. Wherever I live somewhere, I'm going to have stalkers. The difference with here is that because this is not the type of city where a lot of people have permanent accommodation, my stalkers have been changeable. So it's very rare that I actually meet a stalker now and form a relationship with them enough to actually get to know them. I got stalkers here, but it's not the same. In London, they were all up in your face and, they were very well connected and, all the rest of it. But here, I know who some of my stalkers are, but not all of them. And I certainly don't know enough about them or can get enough evidence on them to go up right up to their face and say, look, I know you've been doing this. There's only one person who's been super obvious about their stalking. I went right to their face and confronted them, but that was only one person that really made themselves obvious. The rest of them, I wasn't trying to touch that. Somebody dropped that on the curb and I wasn't picking it up because my focus was on trying to get somewhere to live. And then on top of that, it was short term anyway. So it wasn't worth me blowing. Oh, no, it was two stalkers. Two stalkers I've confronted since I've been here in Brighton. Two stalkers. But the rest of them, it's just been nameless. Either nameless or covert. Too covert for me to go up to them and say, hey, I know you've been fucking doing this. I don't trust you. Whereas in London, it's like a bit more obvious. And, because it's mental, because I've been dealing with mental health service circles in London, when people were stalking you, it was that much more obvious because the world of mental health is like the world of it's like the creative industry. It's a small fucking world, my guy. So in London, it was a lot more obvious than it was here. Or at least it was more easier for me to confront than it was here because I'm used to London people and I'm used to London stalkers and I'm used to how they deal with things. Brighton stalkers, you got to play it differently here because nothing's permanent. And then on top of that, they're not as clued up here about the way these things work. But this is the thing, right? Just because somebody doesn't appear to be as adept at their stalking, it doesn't actually mean they're any easier to deal with. It just means that they're different. That's all it means. I could be smarter than a stalker, but it doesn't actually mean that I would outsmart them because they know this environment better than I do. So I'm just saying, I've got stalkers everywhere. This is gang stalking, babes. They're everywhere, but you have to deal with them in accordance with where you are because it changes all the time.
It's like they always got obsessed with me and they started harassing me and stuff like that. It's like they'd get close and then I'd figure out that they were nuts. I'm sorry to use that language. They'd get close to me and then I'd figure out that they were nuts. Or that they were basically abusing me, and then I'd cut them off. And then they'd try everything that they could to get a rise out of me. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about entrapment. They'd do everything that they could to get a rise out of me so that I'd be kicked out of an environment or institutionalized into hospital. And I know it sounds really horrible, but that was just the reality of my life. And one of those stalkers, one of the multiple stalkers that I had, this particular stalker was very, very well connected. And they made a huge...
So the person that I'm talking about is Vanessa Katani, or Vanessa Shangela, as she probably addresses herself now. And she was well connected as fuck because there are certain people, within Brent Mind that she was very, very friendly with. And like I said, I heard it all from outside. She was very, very friendly with a lot of the staff. I think personally that it went beyond like just, oh, this is my favorite client. I think she was very well connected because she's got eyes and ears everywhere. She's been speaking to Ahmad Mohammed. I know about that. There's no way that Samira Igal ain't involved. All that type of shit, right? So this particular person that I'm talking about right here, very well connected, got eyes and ears everywhere in London. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there are certain stalkers that are in London that I think have eyes and ears here. It's just not as many. So let's continue. I'll probably get a strike for that off YouTube, but I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. They're only gonna block me in the UK anyways.
Fucking deal out of me playing the piano. Like, even if I have my headphones on, they'd be banging the wall. They'd be shouting, shrieking, calling the police even. It was crazy, and it was like, it's like I want to be able to play again, but it's like every time I sit down to play, it's like I'm reminded of abuse, and that's not the only time when I've been abused over the piano. That's not the only time, but it's like every time I sit down to play, I just want to play for my own enjoyment, and yet I'm constantly reminded of abuse. Yeah. And being stalked and all that type of stuff. So that's one thing from the past that I'd like to be able to get over, because it's actually interfering with my creativity.
Okay, so basically this person wanted to bring up the past. If I was to give this person the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know what this world is about. If I'm a trainee psychiatrist and I'm hearing this, the first thing I'm going to be thinking is, all right, what this person is talking about just sounds crazy and out of left field to me. They're talking about torture, remote electronic torture. Nobody's fucking heard of that. There's got to be something else. There's got to be something behind all these stories and all these. Maybe her parents. Maybe it has something to do with childhood. Maybe her parents separated. Maybe she's acting out because she never fully recovered from that. Something along those lines. If I was a trainee psychiatrist, I'd be thinking along those lines, because that's what they're taught. When in doubt, go to the source. And the source is usually the parents. Sigmund Freud, basic shit. That's me giving her the benefit of the doubt. If I was going to assume that this person was a perp, then it's basically coming back around to my parents in a bid to try and cover up everything that's going on. The way that I've dealt with that is I have actually brought it back to the gang stalking, because what I'm talking about there is part of the torture. So instead of playing that game of going back to my parents again, because my parents have been hit too, let's be real, instead of using them as a scapegoat for everything that's going on, I've brought it back to the fucking stalking. You ain't gonna get me like that. That's what I'm saying. There's a reason behind everything that I do. And well connected in London. Didn't I talk about corruption in London during the video? Okay.
I don't like that. I can't stand for that.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. So something that you would like to be able to do again is like play the piano and kind of be able to do some of these more creative things that you enjoy. Yeah. Okay. That's really helpful to know as well.
I've been through so much crap. It's amazing that I've, going through so much crap. It's ridiculous.
Facts.
No, it is. You're doing incredibly well coping with all of this. It really does sound incredibly difficult. So, it's very, very impressive that you've managed to cope for this long. So, what I'm thinking in terms of next steps is I will speak to my supervisor about this. So this is what I do after every assessment is, I'm a trainee, we discuss everything
no,
you might prefer
I get
given
it.
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, something more long term. So yeah, so I'll be discussing that with them, and then I'll get back in touch with you. It will probably be next week or the week after.
Okay.
Are there better times of the day to try and call you?
I think the afternoon is better to call me.
Afternoon, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Not again through that unknown number. Would you like me to send a text before I call you just to let you know I'll be ringing?
Actually, yeah, that would be really, really helpful. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Are you happy for me to leave your voicemail or send you an email?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe send me.
All right, I'm gonna cut it there because I don't think it's really that important. But you see what's going on with the whole assessment. It's a lot to get through, but it's essential that every word is noted, because you know how mental health work and you know how they do their write-ups. And, that's why a lot of TIs usually keep their answers short, because you know how they do their write-ups. So I've got it here as proof and as evidence of everything that I've been saying. And yeah, so that's it. But thank you for joining me. I know it was a long one. You guys take care of yourselves, and I love you. Stay blessed. Take care. Bye.